Okay, books out. We are starting a new topic, page 31. How quiet is this class compared to the last one? Wow. Night and day. I know which one's better. The constant questions or the absolute silence? Okay, so we are going to be working on a new topic, and the topic is reincarnation. Now I'm going to say something a little weird right now, a little unusual, because you don't hear rabbis saying this too often when it comes to Jewish thought. But this topic of reincarnation, in Hebrew, gilgul neshamot. Can you close the door, please, behind you? Can you put away all your phones, please? And the computer's only open 2 blank pages. Gilgul neshamot, reincarnation, is an optional area of Jewish thought. You don't need to believe in this if you don't want to. Isn't that weird? You got to believe that there's a God. You got to believe the Torah is given to the Jewish people on Har Sinai. You got to believe that Moshe Rabbeinu is the greatest prophet that ever lived. You got to believe that there is reward and punishment. You got to believe the Mashiach is going to come. You got to believe in Tchet HaMeitim, resurrection of the dead. But this, you're like, I don't think so. Not interested. It's not mentioned in the Torah. It's not even mentioned in the Gemara. We'll see some hints from the Kabbalists in the Torah and in a number of mitzvot, but directly and explicitly it's not. So if that's true, why are we discussing it this semester if this semester is all about the coming of Mashiach, eventual? I can be here all day. Why are we discussing this topic? Besides the fact that it's interesting and Sephardim love it. What is it about this topic? Huh?
When Mashiach comes, like people say that will be
No, they don't.
okay.
No. Actually, the mistake people make is they mistake this topic, which is not an obligation, to believe in. Although we'll see most commentators do speak about it. The Rambam does not. Maimonides does not discuss it. And some of the Gaonim, Sadigon does not talk about it. But the others do. More of the Kabbalists do. That's Tchet HaMeitim. That is going to happen after Mashiach comes. And that is not completely, but it's unrelated to this. Yeah?
Some people think Mashiach can't come until he fulfills.
So we'll see the rabbis tell us that all the neshamot, those who believe in reincarnation say that all the neshamot that need to be megalgel need to reincarnate before Mashiach comes. They do say that. That is true. From that perspective, yeah. And one other one, which is very central to our final destination, we're going to see there's a lot actually over here. But there is an opinion, we'll see the Abarbanel, Don Isaac Abarbanel of Spain in the 1400s. He says that Mashiach, when we say Mashiach ben David, which we'll get to soon, it doesn't just mean a descendant of King David, which we'll see is an obligation. It also means a reincarnation of King David. So King David is coming back himself, which is quite interesting if you want to follow that line of thought. So let's begin with that. So once again, this is not explicit in the Torah. However, there are hints towards it. So the Kabbalists, we'll see the Zohar talks a lot about it, and the Ramban, Nachmanides, who speaks a lot about this topic in the Torah itself. We'll start with Devarim. Now remember, this is not explicit. All Torah comes as an orchard, pardes, pshat, remez, drash, and sod. Pshat, remez, drash, and sod. So the idea of this topic will appear under the sod aspect, which means the secrets of the Torah, which is you can understand all Torah through that prism. And it talks about Moshe Rabbeinu blessing Ruvain a long time after he died. And he said, Yechi Ruvain v'al yamut, said Moshe Rabbeinu about Onkelos, the famous Roman convert to Judaism says, Yechi Ruvain l'chai alma u'mutatin lo yamut. Meaning, let Ruvain not Ruvain should live an eternal life and let him not die a second death. Why would Ruvain die a second death? So, according to Unclus, what he's implying is that Ruvain died once, but his neshama was going to come back and would potentially come back and then would die again. And would die again. Meaning that he's not going to be here once, he's going to be here twice. By the way, just throw a show of hands if you don't mind. Put your hands up if you believe in this concept of reincarnation. The neshama have been here before and come back again. Oh dear, really interesting. I mean, not even half the class. Yeah, no. Okay, fair enough. Okay. I read actually a piece of the Lubavitch Rebbe. I use this Chumash on Shabbat. I'm not Chabad, but I do enjoy his teachings very, very much. He says that, well, it's written in a few places that before Mashiach comes, we're going to have a lot of people come back. But he says, those people who exist right now, he says, in our generation, because we don't have time to die and come back again because Mashiach's coming. So this is probably the final incarnation of all the people. This is the final sprint, the load up, right? Before Mashiach comes, we're going to kind of load it up and bring him as much as possible, right? Anyone here think they're a reincarnation of someone in particular? Oh, my wife does.
Who?
Someone she's named after who died in the Holocaust. Yeah. There's actually a book which just came out, which I've not read, by, oh God, what's her name? A very famous authoress. Boy, what's her name? I know there's a Jewish non-religious book, but this one's actually a religious book written by, oh, what's her name? On interviews she did of people who believe and have strong memories of being killed in the Holocaust. Oh, you go, it's going to come back to me. It's going to come back to me. What's her name? Riegler, Yocheved Riegler. Sarah Yocheved Riegler just bought a book. I want to read that actually. I need to get that. Yeah. By the way, what's the purpose for reincarnation, by the way? Assuming, we're going to make the assumption, like most of the rabbis say, the Vilna Gaon especially, but the Arizal, and he's going to be like, well, why would HaKadosh Baruch Hu want someone to come back into this world? Anyway, why would the neshamot have to return to this world? There's actually 3 reasons that are given. 3 reasons why a neshama would have to come back into another body and be reincarnated. Yeah?
They have like, each soul is given a mission, and so if someone doesn't complete it, then it has to come back in another body to complete the mission.
Okay. I'm going to put that as number 2. Didn't complete their mission, their tafkid. So come back. Alright, to finish. We're going to look at, by the way, many aspects of this. Can men come back as women and vice versa, and how they come back, and if you do believe in it, what's going to come back at Tchiat HaMeitim. Right? There's a lot of implications that come with this, why we don't remember our previous incarnation, but we can. Right? Who came back in Jewish history? According to the Arizal, different people. We're going to look at many aspects of this. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, Elisha, yeah. Teshuvah, right? To fix mistakes from the past. For example, if a person hurt somebody else or owed them money or did it and they're dead, they can't pay him back. So Hashem says, no problem, you can come back. I'll set you up at a business deal with this person's neshama, and you'll go into business and you're going to lose a lot of money to that person, and you're even going to get a bet in. And he does owe you that money in this business deal. He does. And you know it. But the bet didn't rule against you. Don't get upset. You should assume in a previous incarnation, we'll see a source that says this, by the way, in a previous incarnation, you owe this money to them. They're just getting back what they deserved, and you are now able to fix up, be metaken, the avera that you did in the past life. Interesting? Yeah.
Isn't that a part of your mission, though?
Not necessarily. This could be like positive stuff. I need to do more mitzvot, give more tzedakah. That's positive. This is negative. Get rid of the bad stuff. This is I didn't get a chance to all the good stuff. Yeah. What's the third reason Arizal brings down? What else could it be? Yeah.
You finish your mission, but you're on a roll to go back and help others finish their mission.
How'd you know that?
We learned about it.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Who, with me?
Yeah.
Which class?
And prayer.
I mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I mention that in the prayer class? I don't know either. That's interesting. Yeah, I was right. That's precisely what it is. You're perfect. You finished. You did your tafkid, right? You did it, but you need to come back to help others. Something that you can help contribute to other people. So you finish your mission, right? Enough to get you into Gan Eden. Doesn't mean you don't get reward for your mitzvot still, but in terms of your tafkid, and there's no previous mistakes from the past, somehow you were able to finish them off, maybe Gehenna, we'll talk about that, or whatever it is. But you need to help other people. Like I tell my wife, I'm perfect. I'm here just to help you in your mission, which is why I'm so annoying. Everything you have to say with me, it's your problem. I'm only kidding. Yes?
Does this only apply to Jewish people? No.
No.
Can like a Jew be like
Not only does it not apply to you, it applies to all people at the entire world, but you'll see many, many stories. I mean, I encourage you not now to Google this stuff, which I've done. There was a professor in the University of Virginia by the name of Dr. Stevenson. Non-Jewish guy. He was obsessed with this topic. He took, this was 1960, he wrote a book actually. He researched hundreds of cases of young children specifically, and why it makes sense that young children who are still not swallowed up into this world, hundreds of reported cases. He chose the ones that he felt were verifiable, had a controlled study, and he researched them, right? This is before the internet, it's before anything. And he traveled to India, where there's a lot of such stuff going on, being discussed, right? Because in the Western world, we're kind of like, oh, I remember my past life, and whatever. And he researched it, and he came out, I think, 26 studies. One of them was absolutely fascinating, of a young Indian boy who said, I remember my previous life, and he gave the Moraband, wherever his little town was, and he went to this old town, which was far, nobody knew about it, found his house, went inside there, and saw that his best friend had married his wife, right? Got angry with him. Where's the money? I don't know. He said, there's the money. It's at the wall. They broke up all this money in there. And he writes all about this as a controlled study. He's not even a religious man. He just did this whole study. So yeah, it's not limited. Actually, it's not even limited to humans, even animals. We're going to see that, scarily, the Pelios we'll see inside is going to see that people can even come back as animals, or even inanimate objects.
I thought animals don't have souls, so how does it
They don't. They have nefesh, unless they have a human soul that's put inside them for a short amount of time. You know, when I wrote my first book, I wrote a question on reincarnation, and I started talking about this, and there's like, it's too scary, leave it out. So I left out the various animals people can come back as, because the Pelios gives a list of various animals for various averot, person comes back at.
Can you go back in the dog?
I don't see why not. They say fish is very famous, and cats. Yeah.
Is it like a question about like even non-Jews? Could it just be like, isn't it a thing that like non-Jews have Jewish souls?
So the answer to that is no. No. There is a question on converts. When a person converts, in other words, well actually there's a big question, where do converts come from? And what is their desire to convert? So one opinion is, a very famous, fascinating Gemara in Chazal, that with the Jewish people at Har Sinai, all the non-Jewish nations were asked where they want the Torah, remember this whole thing? And what do they say? Makatife, what's in it? The Jewish people said, Naseh v'nishma. So Chazal tell us that there were actually individuals in those other nations that did want the Torah, but they weren't allowed to because they were kind of like outvoted. So Hashem allows those souls to come back in the future, be Megalgal and reincarnation, and actually those are the original souls that were Har Sinai and wanted to receive the Torah, but were part of those nations that couldn't. So you're actually talking with original souls from Har Sinai. Well, where do they get their desire from? Where do these souls at Har Sinai say, oh, I want to be, with the Jewish people? Where do they get it from? So anybody know where? Nope. I mean, there were non-Jews that left with them, but they became Jewish. At Har Sinai. Avram and Sarah. Remember Avram and Sarah had all these students? Right? They made lots of students in Haran. What happened to all the students of Avram and Sarah? Where did they go? They didn't become the Jewish people. Only the descendants of Avram and Sarah became the Jewish people. So according to this interpretation, within the world of reincarnation, they say that those souls were Megalga later. They were at the time of Har Sinai. They wanted to come, and then they come later on and convert. Which is why you ask any convert whether they're converting, they never give a good answer. I just feel I have to. And they don't say, oh, I just can't wait to keep kosher. Right? Because it's the neshama thing. But they say that's when the souls of converts. So there's a question when it comes to those neshamot actually. Are they born Jewish and convert? Is this really a Jewish soul? Right? There's now, or is a non-Jewish soul that's become Jewish? It can't be. How can you change it to neshama? So they actually say this is a Jewish soul waiting to convert. In other words, it was instilled in it from that time that they really had a Jewish neshama and they were allowed to enter the Jewish people. Yeah.
There's also an understanding that in a convert, if you go back in history, you have a Jewish member that went away and they married out and then now comes back.
You know what I heard recently, funnily enough, from one of my rabbis who was from Scotland. Okay, he was my chaplain and he's a very famous rabbi now. I spoke to him about this recently. Within the past year I spoke to him and we were talking and this topic came up, which by the way you're not allowed to bring up with a convert about their previous life. It's asur to do that. But we brought up anyway, we're discussing it.
You don't care though.
Who? Depends on the person. Depends on the individual. Halacha makes a general blanket. He said to me that he was makabel. I don't know where he heard this from. He read it somewhere. He said that in a previous life they could have done something that pulled people away. That it was a Jewish neshama. Actually, with this would say, and therefore it comes back as a Jewish neshama, but now it needs to go through conversion because it needs to fight its way back. Has to go through something in order to bring itself back, because going through conversion for most people is really difficult. I mean, I'm always involved. It can be very difficult. No?
Not fun. I nearly drowned.
It's very... I don't mean the mikvah part, right? I mean the general experience of it. But that's why, yeah. I mean, I have students right now why you're going through the process. But I've had many, I've been present at a number of, even once on Bet Din, but being present, and it's a very powerful thing. But they say that the struggle to do it, just the struggle process going through it, and part of the community, very, very, very hard. Very, very hard. Yeah.
So we were talking a while ago now about the 3 reasons why we reincarnate.
Yeah.
And how they have to do with missions. And I'm wondering, what's the importance behind these missions and what's the bigger picture?
Oh, everyone has it. Very, very good. Very, very good. The bigger picture is all of world history, taking us from Gan Eden, giving the Torah, and Mashiach's arrival. That's the big picture. Everyone has their own particular, that's a very good question, unique mission in world history, and thus the Jewish people in Jewish history. But the entire world. And every human is made b'Tselem Elokim, therefore a non-Jew can reincarnate as well.
So that's why, the reincarnations, there's a belief that reincarnations stop once Mashiach comes.
Yes.
It's why.
Done. Not needed anymore. Once Mashiach comes and Olam Haba begins officially, it's all over. And the window, they actually say there's going to be, we'll see a Chazal when we get to Mashiach, God willing, like in the book, in the course, we'll see that before Mashiach comes, there's going to be a lot of converts joining our people because this is the last window to get in. This is it. Because once he comes, reveals himself, then, everyone's going to want to convert. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to want to become part of our people. This is their window of opportunity. That's why you see so many nowadays all running to us. I mean, way more than, 1942 in Poland. I'm going to make an assumption that weren't too many people trying to convert to the Jewish people in Poland 1942. Or in Iran 1979. Right? Or wherever you want to be. You know what I'm saying? Or Syria in the 1960s. It's unlikely. I mean, there are stories. And some of our greatest teachers, right? First of all, Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law, convert. Right? Can't mess it up. Ruth, greatest Jewish heroine, who David HaMelech comes from. David HaMelech comes from a convert. I mean, Mashiach comes from a convert. She was a Moaviah, she was a Moabite. Right? Rabbi Kiva. So we see some of our greatest heroes and heroines, right, who have a major role on the Jewish stage of history, went through this process. Yeah? I mean, something's going on here. They're a major part of this process. So I guess if you believe in reincarnation, it's filling in this idea as well. Yeah? Any other questions, thoughts, comments? I'm not trying to buy you buys. You don't want to believe in reincarnation, you don't have to. I'm not going to persuade you. Yes, Julia?
I don't get how it could be like optional. Isn't it extra or not?
No. I know it sounds like it, right? In Judaism, it's all got to be. No. In the world of Kabbalah, in the world of understanding, it's seen as a philosophical approach. And it's up to you. You don't believe it, you don't have to. It's not mentioned in the Torah explicitly. I mean, according to this, it's mentioned implicitly, but not mentioned in the Gemara. The Kabbalah speaks about it, and we don't paskin like the Kabbalah. And for you, it's like, it's a given, right? Hello, but no.
But your mission, like if Jews believe that they have like a mission, and when you
One chance, you do it, you have one life, that's it, done.
did, really? And you complete
Yeah.
it or you don't?
What?
And you complete it or you don't?
Yeah.
And then you don't go to like
Yeah, you don't get a chance to come back again. Yeah. That would be the people who don't believe in reincarnation. What's the other option? I don't know, give me another option. Yeah.
Do rebellion believe in it?
Which rebellion? Depends which war they put themselves in, right? Those who, follow, most people speak of, most of the commentators, the Lagon talks about it a great deal. Yeah, he spoke about it, I'm sure he did. I mean, it wasn't his major thing. I mean, the Chavetz Chaim mentions it in Mishnah Berurah a couple of times. Yeah, it's usually mentioned. It's not made a major focus of their writings, but I'll mention it. Right? Stipler spoke about it. Yeah, the Vilna Gaon has a whole book on it. We'll see, actually, you can see the book of Jonah, according to the Vilna Gaon, his commentary in the book of Jonah is actually one long story about reincarnation. The whole swallowing up of the second fish was actually being born, died, swallowed up, come back out again. It's all about the story of the soul, and he includes in that reincarnation. Yeah.
I once heard an idea that there's only 600,000 original, like...
There are original souls,
Souls.
that is absolutely correct. And there's been way more than that throughout history.
So then, what happened?
Great question. What's the answer to that question? There's 600,000 original neshamot of the Jewish people, and yet we see there are millions.
Isn't there an understanding that you have the original soul and then you have it's like a candle
Exactly.
and you light it and
You can use that metaphor, use a water metaphor, like a drop comes down and drips come out of it. So we know that, one body can't be two places at the same time, although my wife defies that. However, an neshama can. So it sparks, according to the neshamot, they go into various different people, and
So then how do you come back?
or which one comes back? So that, and part of the neshama is actually coming to that person.
For
It
Tchiyat
splits
HaMetim?
up. No, Tchet HaMeitim is the entire neshama of accumulation of all those neshama coming together.
So it's...
The original one of the 600,000, I guess, yeah.
So then only 600,000 people
Oh,
come
I see.
back?
Oh, that. I don't know. Good question. We'll find out, maybe. And all the other neshamot come together with those. Yeah. But the Arizal says, even some of the greatest people. We know that Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron came back. As, anybody know, very famously? Actually, I have a book at home. I think I lent it. Once I lend a book, by the way, I don't expect to get it back. Of various famous people in history who come back at different places, different times.
Rabbi Shimon
Moshe Rabbeinu came back, and Aaron as Hillel and Shammai. Who came back as who? You got to see the traits. Moshe Rabbeinu, Aaron came back as Hillel and Shammai. Who was who? You got two chances. Moshe Rabbeinu came back as Hillel, right? Rod of Shalom. And Moshe Rabbeinu came back as Shammai, and Aaron came back as Hillel, right? Because the Rod of Shalom, right? Helping the convert, and that story, they came back to those. But even this book, I remember, even talks about the Bilam's donkey speaking. I was speaking because it was actually a person. Who was it before? Oh my God, I can't remember. Even he came back as someone. Oh yeah, I've forgotten. I'll have a look at this book. I'll look up the details for you. But even the animals in the Torah could well actually be previous incarnations. So that's the piece of Torah, one piece where they see a hint of reincarnation. But there's also a mitzvah, which is mentioned in the Torah. And this mitzvah is called Yibum. Yibum. They don't know what Yibum is. Yibum is one of the 613 mitzvot, which we do not have nowadays. That only applied at the time when the Beit HaMikdash existed. What is Yibum? Yes, Nina.
Oh, it's when you have a couple and the husband dies, and then the wife goes and marries the other brother in order to save his name.
Exactly. That's pretty much it. You have a husband and wife who are married. Okay, so you have this husband and wife. And they're married. He dies, but he happens to have a brother, the Ach. He dies childless. That's the key part over here. He dies childless. They now have an opportunity for this wife to be a Yibamah with this brother, right? If they both want to. If they both agree, they get married in order to, we'll see, perpetuate the name of the dead brother. Now that's going to be an important piece, because throughout history, any case of Yibum, you never see the actual name being used. So we have to understand that, and the Ramban's going to answer that for us in a second. But this is the mitzvah. One of the Tarek mitzvot is Yibum. Let's say they don't want to get married, which today they are forbidden to get married. They're forbidden. You're not allowed to do Yibum today. What do they do instead? What?
Spit in a shoe.
Spit in a shoe. What's that called? They go and spit in the shoe. They take a shoe off and they spit near it. What's it called? Chalitza. Chalitza. Which literally means, chalutz means to take off the shoe. By the way, they have to say, and there's actually, someone sent me a video of this actually being done at a Bet Din in Monsey a few years ago.
What's the purpose of spitting?
I'll show you. To do that, we've got to figure out what's the purpose of the whole shoe thing. What is the purpose of the shoe? Let's talk about shoes for a few minutes, shall we? That may help us why a shoe is being removed over here. And whenever spitting occurs, we're going to assume it's something of disgust, something not good, right? Although you have to, this is a mitzvah now. Now you cannot do Yibum, but you do Chalitza. Chalitza you have to do, right? And this frees this woman and this brother, right, from replacing this husband who died childless. So let's talk about shoes for a minute, which was mentioned before. Let's talk about some times where we see shoes mentioned in Jewish thought, mitzvot, and Jewish history. So one of them is Yibum. What else is there? No?
A Kohen.
The Kohanim. The Kohanim, they go shoeless. They do their avodah barefoot. True? Yeah?
Mourning?
When we mourn an avel, right, for 1 week, remove shoe. Any Jewish holiday you can think of where shoes are removed? You wear shoes? Thank you so much. Yom Kippur. Wow, usually the first answer I get. I'm surprised. Yom Kippur. Anyone in history told to take off their shoes? Oh, 1 second. Oh, which one is it? Moshe or Yoshua?
Both.
It's both, yeah. Both Moshe. Where was Moshe told to do this?
Outside.
Next to the bush.
Burning bush, at the sneh, right? At the burning bush. Hashem says to him, Sha'al na'alecha mi raglecha. Take the shoes off your feet. Before Ki Admat Kodesh, because this is holy land. This is a holy place. Happens to be that Yoshua was told the same thing. Sha'al na'alecha meraglecha. When when the angel appeared to him the night before he was going to enter into Israel to conquer the first city they conquered of Jericho. And he was told to Sha'al na'alecha meraglecha. But there's something missing in the second one over here of Yeshua, which was not missing when it came to Moshe Rabbeinu. A yud. Moshe Rabbeinu's na'alecha is with a yud, and Yeshua's is without. That's interesting. Why is it seemingly that Yeshua is given less of a removal of the shoes? Hold that question for a second. Let's circle back. As Jen Psaki always says. Let's circle back. What have all these cases of shoes got in common? So we've already mentioned that shoes represent something. What do we say the shoes represent? Just as the shoe holds the body, the body holds the soul. I believe this is the custom that you don't, in Jesus' is a minhag. I've heard it, I think I read it once. When a person dies, no one uses their shoes, they're disposed of. Heard that before?
Yeah.
Alright? I think even in the non-Jewish cultures, they also don't use shoes that were previously worn by the individual after they die. Let's see what's going on with it. Just as the shoe holds the body, so the shoe is the vessel that holds the body, the kli, that holds onto it, like the body holds the neshama. So now the shoe is going to represent the guf and the place of where the neshama is located. So the Kohanim are doing a spiritual service. Their shoes are removed. They are removing their physical aspects of their body. The Avel is in mourning. He's upset, he's uncomfortable, but also a loss has come to this person. Yom Kippur, we're all spiritual like angels. Angels don't wear shoes. Maybe the devil wears, right? But angels do not wear shoes, right? Removed. Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest prophet that ever lived. And he's receiving nevuah at the sneh. What happens? Shoes off. Yeshua is being spoken to by an angel, about to be spoken, actually told off, interestingly, by an angel. The night before he goes to Jericho, and he's told to Shal Na'alecha. But only one shoe. Not as great. That's what the Yud is missing. The Malbim says this. But Moshe Rabbeinu's level of nevuah was much greater. His level of nevuah was much greater. He got to divest himself of both shoes. That means completely remove his physical, right? And be purely spiritual. You hear that? However, Yeshua did not have that opportunity yet.
I have two questions. I don't know if either of these are true, but I heard that you're supposed to, like, when you're like doing like Nitilat Yadayim, you have to wear shoes. Or like when you're like davening, you have to wear shoes.
When you daven, yeah, that's out of kavod to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah. Actually, that comes from the fact that in the original Avodah, Beit Midrash, they went shoes when they prayed. You're not allowed to do that. You should wear shoes when you pray. That is correct.
So it's not like for Nitilat Yadayim, you don't have to.
No.
Okay. And then also, I once heard that this can be totally fake, but that you're not supposed to like buy like people's shoes as a present. I don't know.
Wow. Do not tell that to my daughters, because that's all I do every day, is buy them thousands of pairs of shoes. There are more shoes in my house than Imelda Marcus's spare. You know that is, do you? She was a famous dictator's wife who had like thousands of pairs of shoes. I'm crazy like that.
I've heard that before.
My house is literally a line of shoes every day. They're coming out of Amazon. Like that. It's like a mosque. It's like a line of shoes out there. I'm like, how many feet do you have? What is it with the young Sephardi women wearing shoes? I don't know what it is. Yeah, Baruch Hashem. Yeah. So I never had such a thing. Not buying shoes as a gift for somebody else. It's not halacha, that's what I would have heard it be halacha.
Wait, why
Maybe
is-
it's an Indian not to do that.
They're gonna
Maybe
walk
it's
out
related to
of
this
your
thing of
leg.
dead person's shoes. What?
They're gonna walk out of your leg if you buy someone shoes.
Wow. Then I'll be buying a lot of shoes for a lot of people. Oh my God. I'm like, I think you want these sneakers. Go for a run. A long run. Of a short pair. Ideally. I can't say that. I'm a rabbi. I gotta love everyone. Yeah.
So I heard what you said before about how you're not supposed to wear a dead person's shoes. But I was talking to someone and I was trying to explain to them, but what was the source behind that?
I honestly, I should know. I don't know the source of that, but it makes sense, right? Because that person's dead, and the shoes were the goof that's gone, and now you're taking it. Brings bad mazal. I'm not sure. It's related to this. It must relate to this somehow. I don't. I should. No, I don't believe it is. I don't think so. It may be a minhag, maybe an Indian, which is like below. It's like an Indian, it's a thing, you know. We have different things. You have halacha, we have minhag. There's an Indian, then there's sugula, right? Like biting the top of an etrog to have an easy labor, right? So we have different levels of things that we crazy Jews do, right? So it could be. Anyway, go back to the Yibum. Look at this. So why do I mention this mitzvah? This is a regular mitzvah in the Torah. Look at the Ramban and the Zohar. The Zohar says, well, the Torah says, Ki yeshvu achem yachdav. You have two brothers who are alive. Umet achad mehem, uben en lo. Lo tiyeh eshet hamet. Don't let the wife of the dead man, hachutza leish zar. Don't let her go and marry some random geezer, right? Yibama yavo aleh. Let the brother or the next family member. Oh, by the way, what's the most famous case of Yibum? Ruth and Boaz, right? So the whole Mashiach, and what comes from that? That whole story, one of the reasons we end up doing genealogy is Mashiach comes from that story. So there's a strong connect. I'm just trying to tie in Mashiach, but it's definitely part of it, right? Hello.
Take off his shoes.
What?
Didn't she also like take off his shoes?
I like that. Right? Yivol lev v'lekalo leisha v'yibama. Right? V'yeh habachor asher teled, and let this child that is born from this yakum al shem achiv hamet. Let this child come and on the name of the dead brother. By the way, the child that came from brother was not called right after the dead individual, wasn't phoned. The loyim chashemam Yisrael. So the name is not literally the name; it means the neshama that is represented by the name. Because we said the word, we discussed already, neshama, soul. The root of the word neshama is, what do we say? Shem, name. We discussed that already in this class, didn't we? Good. Let's do that now then. You know what? Let's do that now. So we have a neshama, and the middle is a shame, because your name is your neshama's mission. That's why the Arizal says when a person names their children, they do not name them. There's Ruach HaKodesh, because your name represents your life soul mission. Hebrew name, actually, even your non-Hebrew name. It represents what your mission, tough kid, is in this world. So therefore, when a person names their kids, you can't choose your kid's name because you can't choose their soul and mission. So you get Ruach HaKodesh. Oh, it was in a different class, I think the prayer class. Right? Maybe it was introduction, I can't remember whatever it is. I mentioned here recently. And that's why you see many people. I said this recently somewhere. I don't know. I
We
don't
did it
know.
last class.
Last class?
Yeah.
Oh, here in this class?
Yeah,
Oh.
I think so.
Yeah, right.
Why does a convert get to choose their Jewish
Great.
name then?
So just like a person, because they're now a new Bria, they are created anew, and they get to choose. I have a very good friend of mine whose name is Peter. He's a convert, and he had to choose a name, and he just chose, I went to the Torah, he found a name, Betzalel. I said, I like that name, he just chose a name. End up being that he's very good with his hands, because Betzalel was the one who built the Mishkan, so that was like a thing, it was a very good fit. So you get to choose your name. They get to choose that name, but there's that level. Could you say it's the level of Ruach HaKodesh when they do? You're going to have to say there is. Right? Yeah? Yeah.
What about
What's your Hebrew name?
Rea Tava.
Reya,
Ray Shine Yud Hey.
Reish, Ayin, Yud, Hey. Spell. Reya Tova. It's an interesting name. Where'd you get that one from? Never heard that.
Actually, my parents named me that. Like, that was my birth name, and I kind of just stuck with it.
Ah, you just stuck with it. Okay, good enough for me. Many people of Bali Tshuva who come from rational places or there, they choose names for themselves later in life. I've chosen many names for many people. Usually we take a dead relative. So it fits in why we choose a dead relative. So according to this approach, because that neshama is coming back through this individual. I'm saying if you go with this approach, otherwise you're just honoring their memory, which is also good. But this is the idea; it's coming back again and again, right? You're taking the, Julia.
What about like my community when they need to a living?
Sfardim, that's actually the real way to do it. Yeah. And you look at the Gemara, no, seriously, the Gemara, Sfardim do it too. Most Sfardim do it. In case of the Gemara, you see people name after living. So the idea is that neshama is coming, it's continuing forward. Yeah, we do name after the living. My daughter, she'll be well named after my mother, who Baruch Hashem is Admeh Venstrom alive and well, Baruch Hashem. Yeah. Can you show me that over?
I was gonna ask the same thing.
Okay, so that's Yibum. So what does the Zohar say about this mitzvah? This is the key part, which we took time to get to. V'hi haya rather the gilgul. This whole thing of Yibum. So we're taking a regular mitzvah of the Torah, and we're overlaying this mitzvah on the mitzvah of Yibum, the whole concept of gilgul neshamat. This child is coming out from this union, because you're allowing the dead person's brother is now going to bring forward his dead brother's, you get it? Neshama. That's what Zohar says. The Ramban agrees. He says, "Aval ha'inyan sod gadol." This is a great secret. Right? It just shows that you can have a mitzvah of the Torah, you can understand on one level, right? It's pshat, and then you can see a whole different world happening inside, like an ocean. Sod gadol mistorat Torah, from all the secrets of the Torah, the Toldat Adam, from the genealogy of mankind. The nikar hu leine roim, and those people who see, which is by the way the Ramban's code language for those who know Kabbalah. Roim Hashem natan lahem Hashem einayim lirot, those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. Those people understand what I'm talking about. I don't know what he was talking about, but he's talking about reincarnation over here. He's referring to secret reincarnation, right? So his commentary on the Torah is saying, see this mitzvah Yibum, this is all about reincarnation. Isn't that wild? The Ramban of the Torah. That's a pretty, Elisheva, Ramban, pretty big rabbi, no?
Yeah.
Not bad, yeah. Says the Zohar, there is a pasuk we know in Shemot that says, Hakod avon avot banim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows the averot from fathers to sons, from parents to their children. Al shleishim, 3 generations, Val rebeim. Is that true? The Torah says you get punished for your parents or grandparents' averot. Is that true? Is that possible? Does Hashem do that? So, what is the pshat of this verse? That if you continue the ways of your ancestors, they get punished, and you're going to be punished too. Hashem will visit the same punishment upon you. But he says the following. This is the Zohar says this. And remember, do not mess with the Zohar. He says, Vet kabed al chobikad. Maybe this is really, a tree is planted in a body once, twice, or 3 times, 4 times, and is punished for transgressions of the first incarnation. Right? That was number 1 of the Arizal, remember? So the neshama gets to come back a bunch of times and receive onesh, punishment, from stuff it did before. You actually, by being punished, you're not just fixing your neshama now, you're fixing previous incarnations, he says. Right? So this pasuk, completely different way to look at a pasuk according to Kabbalah, right? He's saying really this 3rd or 4th generation refers to your personal 3rd or 4th generation. Not your parents, but yourself fixing mistakes from a past life. Yep. Yes.
Before you said that, for Yibum, they named the son.
They didn't. That's the funny thing. They didn't name the son.
But like.
There's no obligation to name the son after the dead brother. So what is the shame referring to? He's like, the neshama's coming back. That's what it's referring to.
Well, like, how do we get to choose that, like, the neshama's coming back to the kid? Like,
HaKadosh Baruch Hu says the mitzvah is to do this. You do that. That's the mitzvah. Yibum. So his name lives on. So you read that, okay, fine, he's dead, and I don't know, allow his name to live on somehow. It's like, no, this is all about reincarnation.
So like we're just understanding that like Hashem's guaranteeing us that if the
This
husband
union
dies-
is going to have a child, and then the Nesham's going to, yeah. Hashem's guaranteed this Nesham's going to come back. Pretty big, right? Not bad. Not bad at all. I guess we're not on a level to have that because you can't do it nowadays. The book of Eov, I just looked at this piece within the past few months. I hadn't read it in a long time. Eov. Who was Eov, by the way? Who was Eov? Oh, this actually brings a good proof to us about non-Jews reincarnating. Who asked me that? Who asked me the question about non-Jews reincarnating? Yeah. Eov wasn't Jewish, right? A very righteous Gentile. When did he live, by the way? Different opinions. Some to the time of Paro, one of the advisors of Paro. Where did he live? In Canaan. He was a very righteous individual. Actually, according to the Gemara, maybe he didn't even exist at all. Moshe Rabbeinu just created this book written by Moshe Rabbeinu to answer the famous question why bad things happen to good people. That's interesting as a side point. But most people say he did exist. Rashi said he did exist, and he lived in Canaan. And the Jewish people went to enter into Israel, right, with Moshe Rabbeinu and Miriam and the Aaron and the Torah. And he was alive, and in his merit, the Jewish people could not get into Israel. Imagine that. One non-Jewish great person's merit was holding back the Jewish people from the mission in Israel. So what happened? What did Hashem do to Eov? Killed them, yeah. That's actually the funerals that were taking place in Israel, in Canaan, when the spies went in, right? Hashem did it as a favor so they wouldn't get noticed. Remember that Rashi? Remember that Rashi? Okay, great. So Eov, this is a lengthy piece, but I'm just going to summarize it for you now. Eov is approached by a number of friends who try to console him. All of them try, and he fights and argues with all of them. One of them comes forward and gives, what was his name? Oh no. It wasn't Eliphaz, it was one of the other ones. One of his friends comes forward and he gives an argument, and Eov does not argue with him. The Ramban says on this, and the Rakanati over here says, he says, why am I suffering, basically? Why am I, he says, Hen kol eli yifal kael pa'amim pa'amayim shalosh im gever. God is going to allow something 2 or 3 times. He doesn't argue with this. He kind of lets this go, this argument. And the Chazal trying to figure out. So the Kabbalah, the Rambam and others say, what he's saying is you're not going to understand why you're suffering in this world because it's from previous lifetimes and you don't remember what happened in previous lifetimes. It's reincarnation. Not everyone agrees with this interpretation of this verse. But those who believe in reincarnation say that's actually what he was told. It's interesting. I heard from one of my rabbis many years ago, Breitwich said this in a shir I heard many years ago, that there was no argument. What's he going to say? That's why he doesn't argue with him. He's like, okay, I suffered in the last life, I can understand it, and it's why Hashem decreed upon me, I've got to fix past mistakes. Although he was a very righteous individual in this life. Right? Very, very righteous. Righteous Gentile. Yeah. The Ramban, in Shara Gemul, understands it this way. And we see even the book of Jonah. The book of Jonah is actually, says the Vilna Gaon, a metaphor for the soul's journey through this world. The soul is going through this world. It wants to go to, it's given a mission to go to Nineveh. Remember that? Jonah has to go to Nineveh. He doesn't want to go there. He wants to go to, it escapes to the port of Yafo, he says, which is Yafeh, beauty. You can read, the Art Scroll did a great translation. It's a very short thing, it's worth reading. It's like a long essay. It's very, very cool interpretation. And he gets on the ship, which is the body, to get his job done, and then he leaves, and he gets swallowed up, and then he gets reborn. It's all about reincarnation, he says. In addition to the factual, true account of Yonah's mission, the Vilna Gaon, throughout his commentary to Yonah, perceives an allegorical interpretation within the text. Yonah is the neshama, which is charged with the mission to fill in this world, perfecting itself, right? And neshamot coming along to perfect themselves. The neshama bores a vessel, which is the body, but the person tries to flee from Hashem to avoid fulfilling it. You can run, you can't hide. Yeah? Eventually, the individual is swallowed up and departs from this world, leaving his task unfinished. Remember that? Yep, you got it. That. What happens after that? Comes back to him the second time, says, go to Nineveh. This time he goes, the soul is sent back to earth to finally accomplish its intended mission. So according to the Vilna Gaon, the entire book of Jonah is actually the neshama having a mission, not doing it, and coming back to finish it. Wow. Pretty wild, huh? Yeah.
How does it make sense with death? Because wouldn't it be that we would live until 120, and then like once we die, then like we'll be reincarnated in another body? Like,
No, a person's neshama is taken from this world after any amount of time. You get a tikkun.
like people say like when like a baby like passes away. Like,
So
if they
my
fulfill
la
their-
leinu, my wife, in between our third and fourth and fifth child, had a miscarriage at some point, which is common among the Orthodox because, like statistically, 1 in 5 end up being miscarriages, and we Jews have a lot of kids, Baruch Hashem. And I remember calling my Rav Zimmerman, who should have been well, where I got smicha from, and I told him to speak to him about it. And he said, I remember saying to me, he said that you should know even the fetus gets a tikkun by being in this world for a short amount of time. And not only that, there is an assumption that is made. And we don't tell this to people who are going through suffering, unless they ask for it. But there's an assumption that lo aleinu, young children, must be holy neshamot, because they have such a short amount of life that they didn't have much to fulfill from a previous life. And therefore, they come to this world for a short amount of time, and they get the kapara they need in that short amount of time. But I'm going to add to this the very famous story that I bring down at the end about the Chazon Ish. When a woman walks in, you know the story of the Chazon Ish? Very famous story. Every, yeshiva boy in seminary girl hears this one. The Chazon Ish is approached by a woman and her Down syndrome kid. And he stands up for them. And she asked the question, they left, and they said, why stand? He goes, this neshama, look at the, even as a side point, how we look at people who are disabled, right? Or not mentally. And he says, this neshama, I was standing up for the woman for her son, obviously it's a very holy soul, because in a previous life, I must have thought, it just had a small little tikkun to have, because that's why you see Down syndrome kids, you see they have like tremendous light to them, you know what I'm saying? They have this tremendous joy to them, because they're actually good neshamot. They need to have just a little fix up, and the fact they have limited ability means they just, Hashem brings this world, just get the final piece done to their job, to their mission in this world. And he stood up and he said, that's a holy neshama. As opposed to other cultures and societies in history who look at people who have disabilities and so that and say they're useless and they, kill them. So we see them as being holy souls, the exact opposite.
But then doesn't that mean like if they just have a small mission to fix, then like they're not going to come back again? Oh, I guess they can.
That's it. This is their final.
to help
That's it. No,
other
this is their
people.
final thing. This is their final tikkun.
But they can come back to help other people.
Yeah, and maybe they're going back to help other people as well. You see many parents.
It's like, how do you know like what
We don't.
age people
We
die?
don't.
Like, how does
We
it
don't
make
know.
sense?
Kadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. We have no idea. Al Koch says the Mishnah Perkavot. Al Koch atach nolad notza, against your will you are formed. The Al Koch atach nolad, against your will you are born. The Al Koch atach chai, against your will you live. The Al Koch atach met, and against your will you die. It's all in Hashem's hands. We don't know. We are speculating, postulating. We do not know the ways of God.
I heard that you only die once you fulfill your mission.
So there is this idea that, right, an ideal, right, when a person can fail in their mission and their time comes to an end, they could do so many averot Hashem rules for this world. Who knows?
So how do you?
Yeah, there's an idea that some amount of words, you fill your words, and that's the end of your mission. Yeah. So not necessarily. We hope that's the ideal. Finish your mission, and then you return your soul to your Creator, who gave it. Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, can you just say what you were going to say about parents? You were going to say something about parents.
I was.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure, no?
I was going to say about parents.
You're going to, like,
When you're talking about disabled people.
never mind.
I can't remember. Sorry.
It's maybe to help their parents. Maybe that's what
Oh,
they're
maybe
trying
to,
say.
maybe I was gonna say, yeah. So maybe the child comes back. Well, all children come to actually help bring a tikkun. I mean, my kids are tikkun to me. I tell you that right now. They broke me. I'm just a shell. Just all I want to do is hug and kiss them, give them all the money they want to buy whatever they want at this point. I gave up on that. I'm like, I want AirPods. You go, whatever you want. not even kidding, I bought my daughter an iPhone, what have you? I'll be saying, take me driving. Just don't shout. Take it up here. Stop crying. Please, just stop crying, whatever you. So there's a tikkun for the parents. Yeah. Good bit. Yeah. So that's the bottom of page 32. We're not going to finish this today. It's going to be a two-part series. Repairing spiritual damage, says the Arizal in Shar HaGilgulim, the gate of reincarnation, actually in the introduction, that was incurred through transgressions in the previous life. And we have to factor what's Gehenna do then? So maybe there's certain things that even Gehenna can't fix. Right? Or maybe this is before Gehenna, I don't know. Achieving a level of perfection that was not achieved previously, or one may be reincarnated for the purpose of helping others to reach a spiritual perfection. Wild stuff, right? The common denominator of these reasons is that a person may return to this world in order to complete his essential calling, which they didn't achieve in a previous life. Therefore, reincarnation may also be a form of punishment. Yeah. Turn over the page. Look at the Reshit Chochmah. He says, why is reincarnation necessary for the neshama? Since it gets purified in Gehenna. So he learns from the Ramak, who's Rav Moshe Cordovero, who lived in Sfat, the author of the Tomer Devorah. He explained that there are two reasons for reincarnation. Because the person may be lacking in observance of certain mitzvot, which are needed for perfection. Gehenna can only get rid of averot. It can't give you mitzvot. You don't get mitzvah, you can only get rid of the bad stuff. It takes away that. Two, reincarnation can correct and purify things that Gehenna cannot purify. This is because not all sins can be purified in Gehenna. Therefore, a person must return to the world to fulfill his mission of perfection. Oh, I would have to come back again. I can't go through this whole life again. Oh no. School and calculus and dating and oh god. I hope this is the last one. Oh. Who's got patience for that again? Oh. What? Now those are the two reasons according to the Reshit Chochmah. From Eliad de Vidas. Yeah? Ki yesh avanot shegehenim mitaher v'yesh she'en gehenim mitaher. Certain things that Gehenna cannot purify. Umachrichu levot l'Hashem. He's got to come back to do it all again. Here we go. Round she goes. Place your bets. Place your bets. Where she stops, nobody knows. And the Zohar says that a person is unsuccessful in fulfilling his mission in this world, they're going back again and again. So one of the big questions, which is yeah.
What does that mean? And like Zohar's saying, he's saying that if someone didn't finish it, then they're coming back to continue, or if they did it, but they did it the wrong way.
They didn't finish what they were meant to finish, no? Person is unsuccessful in fulfilling their mission in this world. By the way, there's even a Gemara, sorry, it reminded me now. There's Gemara that talks about certain people have certain mitzvot they're connected to. Right? The Kabbalists even look at the Gemara and sees Kabbalah and they say there's certain Chachamim who are somewhere into giving tzedakah, some into tefillin, some in terms of praying for Shabbat. Right? That became their mitzvah. So it says that becomes their tafkid. So you really say, right, they like this particular mitzvah. But they say based upon this idea, that actually these were previous mitzvahs they didn't do in a past life properly, they come back to this world, and Hashem makes their connection to this mitzvah, allows them to get this mitzvah in this life. Yeah? Yeah? So Hashem will bring them back in order to, attach them to this mitzvah, they can do this mitzvah again and again. There's a famous story, and we'll finish with this, of actually next class we'll talk about how animals may be part of this, but story of a guy, very famous, yeshiva in Israel, and he's saying Kaddish for his father. And every time he said a Kaddish, a cat would appear next to him and leave right after Kaddish. Right? Somewhere like the window. So he went to his rabbi, I said, Rebbe, could this be the soul of my father? And he says, maybe, or maybe it's just a cat. Okay, we will return to this topic next class.
Thank you.